Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Kate Alice Marshall. Kate is the USA Today bestselling author of What Lies in the Woods, No One Can Know, A Killing Cold, and multiple novels for young readers. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with her family. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I was just telling Kate that, of course, because of the holidays, I got a little behind in my reading. So I had planned to finish this morning, but I was up until 1 a.m. because once I got to about page 200, I was like, I'm not going to put this down until I'm done. So, and my son actually went back to New York today, and yeah, he came home at 1 after seeing some friends, and he was like, I can't believe you're still awake. And I was like, I know, I'm just finishing this book. So Kate, this was super fun. This is my first of your books I've ever read, and like I said, it was amazing. So many great twists and turns, so much good family drama. What money does to families, and what people will do to respect the a name and their legacy. So, before we dig into all the fun details, please tell our listeners a little bit about A Killing Cold.
Sure. A Killing Cold is the story of Theo, who has had a whirlwind romance with her now fiance, Connor Dalton, who comes from a very wealthy family. And after only a few months, they're engaged, and he's taking her to his family's yearly Christmas retreat up on the island, on the mountain that they own, which is set up as there's a lodge and little cabins for every family. So it's very isolated, and no one else is allowed there for those 2 weeks. And so she's stuck here with no cell signal, with people who are very skeptical about her. And she's getting some very strange vibes. And then she makes a strange discovery of in an abandoned cabin, and starts to suspect that she may have actually been here before. And some of her very early memories start unlocking themselves.
And they are not especially like calm memories. She has very vivid dreams, particularly, and this is not a spoiler, the man with, the creepy man with the antlers. It is like, and how that works out in the end, you're like, oh yeah. So that is beautifully done. Kate, it's so engrossing. And the thing that I love about it is each of these characters, and there are, the family has, they have 3 children. Their father is deceased, and so the grandparents are very involved. And then, there's an uncle, and then there's the caretaker, and each of these people is a real, sort of real presence on the page. And you sort of wonder, like in a lot of these, we wonder whether or not, which person is sort of is the most nefarious, and is she been tricked into getting up there. And anyway, beautifully done, super fun. So tell us, how do how does a novel start for you? I mean, I'm looking at your back. It looks like you've got, is that not snow, but
No, it's just very gray lighting.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we just moved down to Oregon, but I've lived around the Seattle area most of my life.
Yes. Well, I'm in Montana, so the snowy mountains, and the way there's some creepy stuff about snow, right? In terms of like how people's tracks get covered up really quickly, and you do a lot of beautiful work with that. But I'm digressing. So, how does the book start for you? Tell us how that works.
Every book starts a little bit differently.
Sure.
For this one, I the one commonality is that I usually have like a really clear vibe is like the closest thing that I want to get to. Like I might be in the mood to write something that has an element of isolation, which is where this one started. I was in a very isolation story mood, which is why both of my books coming out this year involve a cast cut off from the rest of the world. So I knew that I wanted to do that kind of, all trapped in the goldfish bowl together
Yeah.
kind of pressure cooker of a web of relationships. And I wanted to write about this character who was uh, coming into the situation blind, because that's always such a fun point of view character. And from there, I just sort of started nibbling at ideas of like, there's got to be some sort of explosive secret in the middle of this. And very quickly, I came upon the idea of the discovery that she makes in the cabin, um, and which is a photo of herself as a little girl, which should be impossible because she's never been here before. And the photo is
Hmm.
specifically of being at that retreat location. And then I was like, okay, awesome, great, got it. Why?
Right.
So then I spent a few weeks kind of spinning in circles trying to justify this very cool idea that I had. And luckily I worked it out.
Now, when you're doing that, because of course that's exactly right. There has to, the precedent has, or the premise has to make sense, and that's the biggest thing, right? Because readers will be like, that doesn't make sense. So when you're doing that, are you walking circles? Are you folding laundry? What gets those ideas? Are you talking it through? How do you do that?
I do a lot of trapping people in conversations
Right,
online or
right,
in person and just
right.
like talking to them. It's like it's brainstorming, but I don't want any feedback. I'm just going to explain it to you and in the process realize where my blank spots are and all of that. And then I do a lot of the same sort of thing with pen and paper. I fill up many notebooks at this stage with just writing out. Sorry, my dog's jangling his tags right here.
That's fine. Yeah.
Um, so I just write about the book, and it kind of goes in circles. I write the same things over and over again, and I figure out, oh, okay, so this I need a character here. And so who is that character? And I'll go through asking a bunch of questions about them, and slowly those questions will take me back to where I was before with like, okay, but what has to happen here?
Hmm.
And having that pen and paper connection really helps my brain cook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just lots of free writing and lots of initial ideas that I abandon. And then usually by the time my pen is running out of ink, I have a pretty good idea of the shape of the
Okay.
whole thing.
And so you sort of note take before. So are you outlining as you do this, or are you just sort of it's just an amorphous sort of this is about kind of what's ha going to happen overall without it being sort of planned, and then you write through the plan, or how does that work? Because everybody is so right,
It's
everyone is so different.
Yeah, I don't have like a clean organized outline, but it is basically outlined by the time I'm done because I've written so much about it. So I almost never go back and read anything I wrote even once in that process, because
Interesting.
it's so stream of consciousness, and it's just like giant walls of meandering text and like half finished sentences and stuff like that. So out of that comes I'll then like take what I remember from writing all of that and write something a little bit more cohesive, like into a Word doc or something, so
Right,
that if I'm
right.
like, wait, what was the midpoint going to be? I can go check on that. But there's no like bullet point style outline. But all the information is there. It's just like I like to leave it a little more plastic moldable.
Yeah. So
So
it's
holding
interesting.
it in my head works better.
And I love the idea that yeah, exactly. I love the idea that you don't write it down. So you're basically like, the way it works is you're just telling yourself the story over and over, and then you're finding another little thing that works, and something else kind of goes away in the process of doing that. And so you just keep at it. You just, and it's the kinesthetic, pen to
Mhm.
paper that makes it sort of create itself. You said you don't go back and look at what you've written. How do you keep it, in your head? Do you worry sort of about like, I guess you sort of at some point put something down, but do you
Mhm.
ever feel like you're going to lose pieces of it, or are you just knowing that it's somewhere that you can look at is sort of enough?
Yeah, it is there if I do need to go back, but I very rarely do. I will, like I said, eventually put a condensed version into a Word document. But frankly, I often then don't look at the Word document. It's just
Yeah.
like it's my safety net there. Really, the way that I remember it is that I continue to think through things that way. And my notebook lives right next to my computer as I'm writing. And I will use it throughout the day and plan a few more scenes ahead. And so I try to draft fast
Mm-hmm.
in a sprint so that I can hold all of that and feel the whole of the book all at once. So I have to
Wow.
get through it fast enough that it doesn't start to wander
Yeah.
away from my brain. So I just go over it over and over again as I write as well. And that lets me really adjust things as I go in a very organic way. And often I'll start to slow down in my writing, and that's the first warning sign that, oh, there's something I haven't figured out, or I
Mm-hmm.
had something wrong. And so by quickly switching back to my notebook and writing through it again, I can unknot that problem pretty quickly and jump back into the writing.
So when you say you do it sort of at a sprint, what does that look like? I mean, how fast are we talking? And is it, and do you
Oh,
feel like you get a
gosh.
full 60,000? I mean, are you getting the whole book, or is it like it's a sort of it's more of a it's a little bit thinner and then you go back and thick, beef it up? Or I'm always I just feel like it's so fun to hear everybody's process. Obviously, there's no right way to do it, right? Because everybody does it differently. But tell me about that.
Well, in my younger days, I wrote a lot more. I am a very fast drafter. I've slowed down a bit as I've had kids and I work on a steady schedule now. And I don't have quite the adrenaline spike of like fitting it in between other things. But my typical daily speed is like 3 to 4,000 words a day while I'm working. And for me, that's like I've really dialed it back. When I was young and carefree, I had a day where I wrote 18,000 words in a day, stuff like that. And then got tendinitis, so I don't do that anymore.
Oh, right. And you're like, and your body's like, and no, we're not doing that
Yeah.
anymore. No,
But
I,
I'm
yes.
much happier if I can write it start to finish in one go with like breaks of a few days to figure out problems and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if I step away from it, it loses that
Of course.
immediacy. And then also it has the danger that I might get bored of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very like, there's another shiny thing on the horizon kind of writer. So for that
Right.
first draft, I try to just like blitz it out. And I also enjoy revising a lot more than drafting. So that
That's
lets me
interesting.
get to my favorite part of just like starting to make all of the little pieces sing together and find all of the things that I only discovered in the last third of the book and bring them
Yes.
back to the beginning and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think, I mean, that's hard with kids, right? Because I think that's an interesting thing too, because, my kids are now grown and out of the house, but when they're little and, there is, the idea that you could just, there's so much interruption, right? So you obviously, are you able to write every day? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm writing full time, and I have been for a while. And the kids are in school now, so I
That
have their
helps.
school day to work, which really helps a lot. I have totally lost the ability to work while they're in the house. Like my brain is
Yeah,
over with them and not up on a snowy mountaintop at all. So
right.
I've kind of spoiled myself into not being nearly as scrappy and resourceful as I used to be.
But also don't you think, I mean, it's interesting because I do feel like that sometimes that's like when I have to slow down, it's me knowing that something is, like you said, not quite right.
Mhm.
Like versus I used to just power through that. And then I'd get to a point where I'd be like, wow, something's wrong. And it was wrong, you know, 15, 20,000 words ago. So I think there's something about like there's some signs now that I pay attention to that I didn't pay attention to
Mhm.
when I was younger.
Yeah, I often find that, and even when I'm like just not quite feeling it, it's usually because something is missing. And that might be, sometimes it's as simple as my prose has gotten a little out of whack and I lost the voice. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not, uh, the book isn't inside me in the right way as I'm writing. And sometimes it's like, oh, this plot point was completely the wrong one, or I need a new beat or a new twist or a small moment of drama or mystery in this scene, and it doesn't have one. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually have a number of like major plot points in my books that came about because it was like this dialogue needs someone to say something dramatic or
Right.
mysterious, or it needs
Right.
to seem like they have a secret, and now I have to create that secret.
I love that. I mean, that's a lot of awareness in the pages because I think sometimes, that's you really sort of recognizing that something's missing. I find I don't always recognize that until I'm through the draft and looking back and being like, wait, what does the scene even do for us? Do we need it? Which I think it's more powerful to come out your way. Now, you mentioned you have two books coming out this year. Is that what you said, or did I miss?
Yes.
So tell us about that. Wow.
Yeah, so I have my next young adult thriller is coming out as well. And my last few young adult books were supernatural
Hmm.
thrillers, horror. This one is back to the more straight thriller genre, and it's also about a group of people, but these ones are more literally trapped. It's a group of young people who have been recruited for a survival themed reality TV show, but they get there and there's no one else there. And then they get stuck in this ghost town that has been set up for some kind of reality TV competition. But no one seems to be there. They can't get away. And then one of them turns up dead.
Wow, I mean, that isn't, I love that you're like my vibe. I guess my vibe in 2024 writing was isolation. Is that
Yeah.
you're like, I'm just going to hit that on all the, so are you doing, you're not doing a young adult and an adult thriller every year though.
I have in several years,
Wow.
but right now I think that the next YA after this one will be 2027. So I'm
Hmm.
taking a gap year there.
Yes. Well, I mean, that seems reasonable. And because your kids are, how old are your kids?
They're 5 and 8.
Oh, that's a great age. But that's a mom's on a lot. So you're not writing
Yeah.
the weekends and stuff. So this is what I think is interesting about, and maybe I'm obviously I'm older. So I find the idea of keeping a book in my head if I'm not in it every day is really hard, right? So if
Hmm.
like I surface, even if I just visit it for, 10 or 15 minutes or I go through a scene or I make a few notes, then that sort of touch point keeps me, it's like I always equate it to like a friend who's going through something really catastrophic in her life. And if you talk to her every day, you kind of get, you kind of are in touch with whatever sort of little blip is happening. But if you don't talk over the weekend or over 3 or 4 days, then all of a sudden you're like, what have I missed? And it turns out, you've lost touch. So
Yeah.
that's hard to do though when you have young children.
Yeah. I definitely, especially because they have the uncanny ability to get sick right before a deadline.
Yeah, lovely.
So, I'll be in the groove and working just head down on the book. And then all of a sudden it's like, and for 3 days,
Yeah,
you're just going to be entertaining the children who mysteriously, when they get sick, they're not all droopy and sleeping in bed. They're just home and energetic and want you to
right.
come play board games with them.
Yes, yes, exactly. You're like, and that is not what I need to be doing right now. Well,
Yeah.
so that's what, so you're gonna do another adult thriller, it sounds like in 2026, and then
Yes.
you'll have that's so what's the difference for you? I mean, is it like playing in two different types of worlds because YA is sort of has to be, I guess, a little less dark and a little bit simpler. How does, what makes those feel different for you, or how are they different?
Yeah, there are different types of darkness that work in young adult. My
Yeah,
books are really quite dark, but not necessarily along the same lines.
right.
And they don't necessarily tackle the same issues in the same ways.
Hmm.
I really love the contrast. I've also written middle grade, and jumping between all three of those was really fun because like I said, I get on a theme and a vibe, but it ends up being such wildly different stories in each
Right.
one because in middle grade, I also tend to write more humor.
Hmm.
And it's a more lighthearted, it's more sort of like positive family messages.
Yeah,
There's
which
not
you're
a lot
not
of
gonna get.
positive families in my adult
No,
stuff.
no, right, right. This is not the right. This is not the positive family experience that middle grade readers want. Yeah.
And then for young adult, the difference that I always talk about is just like what you reach for secrets and drama and that sort of thing. Because in my adult books are about something that happened a long time ago and now it's coming back to the surface,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of the time it's a childhood trauma or a secret from when they were young. And I love the sort of like what happens when a secret has been festering for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yes.
And in adult, that can be a very personal secret. If you want to have that kind of time scale in young adult, it can't be theirs, because
Right.
they weren't alive or like
Right.
the toddler was not getting involved with international smuggling, probably.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you want a story in young adult that's like a character who has loved and lost and is searching for love again, like that happened in the last 2 years max.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
exactly.
have the same weight of scars. So
Yeah.
instead, you look for like, this is the first experience. This is more raw. This is someone who hasn't had the experience of adulthood to compare what's happening now to.
Right.
And for younger readers, also, that the emotion tends to be a lot more heightened and a lot more like, you're walking around like a live wire when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And
It
so
seems like life or
that
death, but
intensity is
right.
really fun.
Right. And that's exactly because everything at that age does feel so profound and important and earth-shattering. One of the things this makes me think back onto A Killing Cold is I love the idea. There's so much in here about what you remember from childhood and how when you sort of it gets excavated to the surface, it's things are not what you remember. Like you kind of have some of the things right, but it turns out you had it sort of upside down and backwards, which I love
Mhm.
about the story is that's true for a lot of these characters, right? It's just like it's sort of what they thought it was, but it's also not at all what they thought it was. And so you're convinced about how something went down because you have some
Mhm.
little memory of it, and yet it really went down very, very differently. And I love that. I mean, that happens to like I mean, more like three or four characters in the book where what they remember is not, is not exactly what happened. So that's
Yeah, or they remember their part accurately,
ex
but they had a very
ex
limited view on things.
exactly, exactly, and there is a sort of this wealthy Dalton family. There is this sense of like it's. Protecting the family at all costs, and you can see how they justify, all the things that have happened and and what the impact will be on on the children and the grandchildren in terms of wealth and the business and the family, and yet it's how some of us make the worst decisions, right? Is justifying them by some sort of idea about what it will mean if the secret comes out. So it's just so beautifully done. So um so are you, and then this is of course the way it works, right? If this book is coming out like now or
Uh-huh.
this month, then you also probably are like neck deep in, I mean, not just your young adult, but also sort of the next thriller. And so can
Yes.
you give us a sense of the next vibe? I know you don't never want to talk about something too much, but is there a new vibe for 2025 work?
Yeah, so my next book, I'm actually turning it in the next day or two. So
Wow.
it is about a there's one point of view, which is um, woman who works for search and rescue as a volunteer,
Hmm.
and she is out on a search for a young boy who's wandered away from his house. And in the course of this search, she finds this weird little piece of evidence that uh, makes her think about a girl who went missing a few months ago, like a teenager. And she just starts kind of going down this rabbit hole of like, this was supposed to be a runaway, but I think something else happened. And I think it happened out here on this property that belongs to another sibling set. So more
I love
family
it.
drama.
Do
And
your,
then the
does,
other
yeah.
point of view is a young woman who is trapped in a bunker, has been abducted, but the door has stopped opening and she's all alone down
Oh,
there and is running out of food and water. And so she has to figure out how to get herself out.
wow. That is going to be fabulously intense. I love it. So the new vibe is yeah, like desperation and time running out for everybody involved, it sounds like.
Hmm.
That's super exciting. Well, congratulations. This is as I said, this was my first book by you, Kate, and I did devoured it. I just had the best time reading it. So I'll look forward to getting back to your other books and also reading your YA. That's so exciting. So tell our listeners where they can find you online, your website, so they can go and find A Killing Cold and also take a look at your past books.
Absolutely. I am a little bit of a digital hermit, so I am still on Instagram. My handle is at K Marshall Arts.
Love it.
And my website is katemarshallbooks.com. And there you can sign up for my newsletter, which I am trying to make the main source for news and giveaways and, special little bonus things. I have some really fun stickers tied into A Killing Cold that I am giving away to a few people and will be with me on my tour this February. If you happen to be in one of those cities, come by and snag one.
I love that. And that sounds like we can find that at katemarshallbooks.com. It'll tell us about your
That's right.
travel schedule, and that's really, really exciting. Well, this was so fun. And we will have a copy of A Killing Cold on our Facebook Killer Women group page so that you can come on and enter to win that. And also, I know some of you can't see this gorgeous cover, but covers are one of my favorite things, and this one does just a beautiful job of capturing a very cold, isolated spot. So, congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
So fun. Everyone, so fun to have you here today on Killer Women with Kate Alice Marshall, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.